On the road again, President Donald Trump heads to Arizona. Why it may be the start of a more busy travel schedule. A new biography. Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI weighs in on some of the greatest threats facing the church. Saving Grace. An iconic depiction of Christ helps to deliver an important message to the people of Brazil. And a life with our Lord. The Holy Father warns the faithful about the common roadblocks to following Jesus. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. President Donald Trump says that we have to get our country open, and he's worried about what could happen if people continue to be locked down. He also says that he has given governors great discretion, but will call them out if he has to. Correspondent Owen Jensen reports now from the White House. Owen?
Tracy, here at the White House, President Trump is promising a rebirth of the nation. He says he can bring the economy back the way it was just a few months ago. And he's also warning governors to be careful and not move too far too fast.
President Donald Trump on the South Lawn this morning feeling optimistic that America can rebound from the pandemic.
And I view these last couple of days as the beginning. We're going to build the greatest economy in the world again, and it's going to happen pretty fast.
But if the nation stays shut down, he worries about people's health, and not just from the virus.
If they held people any longer with the shutdowns, and you're going to lose people that way too, and you already have, I'm sure. But between drug abuse and they say suicide, a lot of different things.
As for governors making the calls on opening up their states, there's been praise and criticism from all sides. In California, more open signs going up, following the guidelines, of course.
To begin to reopen for pickup, clothing, bookstores, music, toys, sporting goods stores, florists with Mother's Day coming up.
And while President Trump is excited and eager to see states reopen, he's cautious too.
If, however, I see somebody doing something that's egregious or wrong, I will stop it in 2 seconds. Many of the governors have called me up and asked my opinion, but and really a lot of them have, and the relationship is very good.
And on why he's not letting Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's on the coronavirus task force, testify before a House subcommittee.
The House is a setup. The House is a bunch of Trump haters.
Now, to be clear, Dr. Fauci is being allowed to testify before the Senate. Also tonight, major U.S. automakers are reopening plants in North America in the coming weeks. That'll put thousands of more workers back to work. A tiny public school in Montana is having kids back in the classroom very soon, but most schools in the country remain closed. Tracy?
Okay, thank you, Owen. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us tonight. The Senate holds its first hearing since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, questioning President Trump's nominee to be the next director of national intelligence. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales followed this morning's hearing and is here now with more. Eric?
Tracy, this morning's hearing was the first by the Senate Intelligence Committee. It was held in nearly an empty room with senators wearing face masks. But the questions were timeless and focused on Congressman John Ratcliffe's qualifications.
Sure, let's do it if we're working on coronavirus, but we shouldn't be doing it for extraneous reasons, and we could do these hearings remotely.
As independent Senator Angus King and Senate Democrats pushed for the next aid bill, Republican senators attempted business as usual.
You solemnly swear to give the committee the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
President Trump's pick to lead U.S. intelligence agencies vows to protect whistleblowers.
Should the identity of whistleblowers ever, under any circumstances, be disclosed without their consent?
No, whistleblowers are entitled to anonymity.
But Democrats remain skeptical on his experience.
I still have some of the same doubts now as I had back in August.
Defending his decision last summer to withdraw his name from consideration, Ratcliffe made a direct appeal to his fellow lawmakers.
But I'm one of you right now as a member of an oversight committee, and America functions better when its elected representatives are fully informed by the intelligence community, and I intend to do that.
Republicans pointed to an op-ed by Congressman Will Hurd, a former undercover CIA officer. Hurd wrote, quote, John has the right mix of experiences to lead the intelligence community. Meanwhile, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer accused Republicans of taking their eye off the ball.
We should be working to provide our country with the relief and support it so direly needs.
President Trump has taken aim at key figures in the intelligence community, but Congressman Ratcliffe made it clear to President Trump, he says, that his loyalty is to the Constitution. Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
The president of Venezuela is claiming that 2 Americans were among a group of mercenaries trying to kill him.
Mercenario profesional de los Estados Unidos.
Nicolas Maduro went on national TV to show pictures of the 2 Americans and their passports. They are identified as Luke Denman and Aaron Berry, both former U.S. Special Forces soldiers. The men were apparently arrested after a pre-dawn raid Sunday that left 8 others dead. A couple hundred Pakistanis are finally able to cross the border to get back home after being stuck in India because of the lockdown. Border guards allowed Pakistanis wearing masks to cross the border that separates the Punjab region. It was open this morning for the first time since the lockdown began. Iran is sending medical aid to Lebanon to help in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. A plane carrying ventilators, tests, and masks arrived in Beirut yesterday. Iran has historically supported Lebanon's militant group, Hezbollah. The United Kingdom is reporting more than 29,000 deaths from COVID-19, the second highest death toll after the U.S. and more than Italy. But the British count includes all deaths.
There are different ways of counting deaths. As we know, we've had that debate in this country. We now publish data that includes all deaths in all settings. Not all countries do that, so I'm not sure that the...
Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab also says that it is too early to compare to other countries, as they may not measure fatalities in the same way. Swiss guards at the Vatican wearing masks at the main entrances. They were supposed to hold a swearing-in ceremony for the new guards tomorrow, but that has now been postponed until October. Still no word on when public masses will be celebrated again. The Vatican's Migrant and Refugee section launches new pastoral guidelines for internally displaced persons. The guidelines call for those who are forced to flee their homes to receive the same legal protections as refugees. The Vatican proposes ways the Catholic Church can help through aid, education, and spiritual assistance. More than 40 million people are believed to be displaced within their own countries. Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI speaks about some of the greatest threats facing the Church in a new biography published yesterday in Germany. The book, written by German author Peter Seewald, includes a wide-ranging interview with Benedict. The Pope Emeritus is quoted as saying, "Modern society is in the process of formulating an anti-Christian creed, and resisting it is punishable by social excommunication." The English translation of the book is set to be published later this year. Anian Christoph Wimmer, editor-in-chief of Catholic News Agency Deutsch, joins me now by Skype from Munich. Christoph, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Tracy. Hello.
Well, Christoph, what are the author and the Pope Emeritus both trying to convey in this biography?
I think they're trying to convey a rather accurate picture of the whole scope of both the theological and the personal and perhaps even the spiritual life of Pope Francis in a time of the Church that we're living through right now.
Christoph, I know the German author wrote a number of books on Pope Benedict XVI. How is this interview different from the other ones?
That's right, Tracy. He has published a number of books. He has spoken, he's interviewed Pope Benedict and Joseph Ratzinger many times. He reckons he's asked about 2,000 questions. But the scope of this book really is something different. This biography goes all the way to the most recent events in the Church, but it also goes to the very night that he was born on a Good Friday many years ago in 1927. So it captures a whole spirit, a whole age, it captures a whole life and puts them all into, yes, 1,000 pages, a rather big biography.
What has the reaction been from the German readers so far?
I don't think many people have really gone to read the book as fully as they perhaps could have. Therefore, reactions have been rather short and focusing on the most contentious issues, such as the question of the dubia, on Amoris Laetitia, and some of the things that Pope Benedict has said about the dictatorship of relativism and, for instance, the way that sexual morality has changed over the last few decades in the West.
I know the biography is going to be translated into various languages. How do you think Catholics will react once it is?
I think this will be a momentous publication in the Catholic world, in particular also in English, and I expect it to be published in about October this year, if I'm informed rightly, because some of these answers that we're hearing in this book and some of the sentences that Seewald, the author, also offers in terms of an interpretation might be new and surprising.
Well, Christoph, anything else that you have gleaned through this that you would like to share with our viewers?
I think the most important aspect of this book, perhaps for the average Catholic reader, is that you really get to meet Pope Benedict on a personal level, and you get to understand what the man went through, also with a view to this momentous and, for many people, disturbing decision to resign. I think that is perhaps a key to opening the understanding of the pontificate and the man who was our Pope for a few years at least in these troubled times in the Church.
Oh, Christoph, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, thank you for your analysis. Anian Christoph Wimmer, Editor-in-Chief of Catholic News Agency Deutsch. Thanks again.
Thank you kindly.
Coming up, Pope Francis warns the faithful against a love of money. And an update on a lawsuit against the governor of Virginia regarding religious freedom. Pope Francis warns the faithful about the stumbling blocks to following Christ.
E non si può seguire Gesù senza libertà.
At his daily mass at the Vatican, the Holy Father says the love of money is the main hurdle to following our Lord. Others include apathy and being focused on things of this world. A life with Christ becomes much easier if we eliminate these temptations. The Justice Department sides with a Virginia church suing the governor over restrictions because of the coronavirus. The DOJ filing made in support of the Lighthouse Fellowship Church states, quote, the Commonwealth cannot treat religious gatherings less favorably than other similar secular gatherings. Joining me now on Skype is Jeremy Dys, Special Counsel for Litigation and Communications at First Liberty Institute. Jeremy, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me.
So let's talk more about this case in Virginia. Authorities allege the church violated the state's ban on gatherings of more than 10 people during a Palm Sunday service. The church's pastor received a criminal citation even though social distancing and other recommended protocols took place. Do you think the Commonwealth went too far? And what should be the balance, do you think, between religious freedom and public health?
Look, this is a debate and a discussion we've been having now for, 8 weeks or so about how far must churches submit to the governing authorities when we're trying to freely exercise our religious beliefs under our Constitution. And I think it's right and appropriate for us to rely upon our elected officials to give us guidance and recommendations based upon what's good for the public health at that time. But those restrictions, as they put them on us, need to be temporary. And I think it's okay to have temporary restrictions in terms of large gatherings as long as they are temporary and evenly applied. But I think both of those are beginning to wear thin. They are no longer temporary as such, as they're becoming much more permanent in feel, but they're also not being exactly evenly applied right now. For instance, can you go to Walmart or Target or Home Depot with certain safety precautions in place, but not to church? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And I think a lot of Americans are waking up to that reality and asking, how much longer is this going to go on?
Yeah, I know the Justice Department also sided with the Mississippi Church after its congregants were cited by local police for attending a drive-in service. Let's talk about that and the message that you think this kind of federal support sends.
Oh, it's enormous when the United States government weighs in on your side, as it did with our case in Greenville, Mississippi there, where the police showed up to an African-American congregation and surrounded them effectively while they're trying to engage in drive-in church service, sealed inside their vehicles here. Look, what the Attorney General has done very well to do in this situation is to remind the country that there is no exception for a pandemic within the Constitution. It still applies, and the First Amendment has not submitted a doctor's note and gone home on sick leave. It still applies today, and that's really important for us to remember, that even in these times of national pandemic and difficulty, it's comforting to know that our Constitution still limits the effects of government and still restrains too much authority being used by those who seek to exert more and more authority over top of the people.
You know, Jeremy, we hear a lot these days about what is and what isn't an essential business or service. Do you think local governments miss the mark here by not deeming churches and other religious institutions essential?
Look, I think churches all over this country are eager to provide the care and the comfort and the calm that they so uniquely provide, and frankly, removing that burden from the burden of governing here. And our local officials would do well to remember that they're here to help. The religious community is here to assist in this time of need. What's happening now, I'm afraid, is that these restrictions are going on just a little too long. And so, for instance, last week we sent a letter to the governor of Illinois informing him that our client, Northwest Bible Baptist Church, is going to be resuming in-person services, and they're going to be doing that by enacting a number of safety procedures as they do so. Look, if we can social distance at the local Walmart, we can certainly social distance at the local church as well. We need to remember that religious exercise involves much more than just remaining in a virtual environment. There are certain things that simply cannot be done in a virtual environment, like baptism or communion and things like that. It's essential that we allow our religious communities to get back together once again in a safe and in a prudent manner, but welcoming them back to the reality that we need them in this community.
Jeremy, you mentioned Northwest Bible Baptist Church planning on reopening and resuming their services. Are you hopeful that's going to be able to happen for them?
I am. Look, and on May 17th, they, along with about 50 different churches around the state, are planning on resuming their services in person. And look, they articulated a list about a page and a half long of a variety of safety and health precautions that they intend to take that are more restrictive, by the way, than what the CDC even requires of them. Look, they figured it out. They know that they have to do safety procedures. They know they have to be careful in how they go about doing this. They want to be careful and loving towards their neighbor as they go about doing this. But they know that they have to be able to meet back in person. This is something that is near and dear to their hearts because it's required of their faith. And that's something for the state to recognize once again, that this is not some sort of freedom to worship where we can just simply stay inside of a virtual environment. Free exercise of religion means that we can go out beyond the internet, beyond the four walls of our house, and take our faith into the public square, using, of course, wisdom and guidance by the government, but certainly acting in a way that is safe and healthy. If we can do it at Walmart, certainly we can be able to do it at our churches as well.
Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate it. Jeremy Dys, Special Counsel for Litigation and Communications at First Liberty Institute. Thanks again, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Well, the Diocese of Buffalo asked a federal court to halt all outstanding clergy sex abuse cases against it. The diocese has been named in more than 250 such lawsuits. The declaration of bankruptcy stops the suits against the diocese, but not parishes or Catholic schools named as co-defendants. The last remaining abortion clinic in Arkansas has filed a lawsuit. It seeks to challenge a state rule that patients must test negative for the coronavirus within 48 hours of elective surgery. The clinic says a lack of testing is hurting women from having an abortion within the state's 20-week limit. And you can read more about the Arkansas Health Department's order regarding abortion by going to our sister publication, CatholicNewsAgency.com. Up next, an effort to help those struggling to pay for food. Plus, a life-saving message from the Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil. As the coronavirus continues to take its toll on the U.S. economy, many have been left without jobs and are now struggling to pay for the basics like food. In New York, a drive-through food pantry has been set up to help those most in need. EWTN News correspondent Colin Flynn reports from Brooklyn.
Sandwiches? Yep, we can get you some sandwiches.
Father Dwayne Davis is operating a drive-through in Brooklyn. But at this drive-through, you don't have to pay for anything.
How many people in the family? 6.
You tell them how many is in your family, how much you need, and then open the trunk, and they place a box of fresh food inside. This is St. Thomas Aquinas' parish, and Father Dwayne Davis is the pastor.
We have about 12 to 1,500 people that comes to Mass here at St. Thomas Aquinas on weekend. And so it's really a great joy to really work with the community and work with the people here.
The physical church may be closed due to COVID-19, but that doesn't mean the church as a body and community has been closed. Father Dwayne, what's happening here today?
So right now here at St. Thomas Aquinas, we started a food pantry. We got over 300 people in one day. Well, it really says to me that there's a real need, and we believe that it's going to get even greater.
Food is donated by local businesses and individuals and then sorted by a team of volunteers from the church who divide the food into different boxes, ready to be placed in cars.
There's people out there right now that are really, really hard up for food. You know, we're fortunate enough that we have food. A lot of people out there that don't.
Louis Studo is a member of the Knights of Columbus and says the work they do is them putting their faith into action.
To see you give somebody 2 days worth of food and to see the smile that goes on their face, it's worth $1 million. Worth $1 million.
Oh, I think I got a chicken, which is amazing, and a lot of vegetables, and it's just really helpful for us all. And it's kindness and it's the Spirit of God that I appreciate.
I lost my job, and then I have Fabian. He can go to the daycare. When you come every day or every 2 days to take this box, it means a lot for the household.
And for the people who are too old or too sick to come to the drive-thru, younger members of the parish are collecting food for them. And you're getting 6 boxes today. Who are they going to?
Different families who don't have a car, so I'm just dropping it off for them.
And with a quick blessing, Father Dwayne sends them on their way, while inside the volunteers continue to pack the boxes for the cars that keep rolling in. 300 of them a day.
Everybody here takes out their time. We don't do it because we're making money on this. We do it because this is our faith. This is our faith in God. God put us here to do a reason. This is my job. I'm not working, so this is my job, is to help people.
And how has this affected your own faith, this work that you're doing?
So the way that it really affects my own faith is, you know, it brings me back, and I was reflecting on this last night, it brings me back to my own conversion story. I converted to the Catholic Church because of the corporate works of mercy being done well. And that's really one of the reasons why I came into the Catholic faith, because I believe that the church was living the gospel.
In Brooklyn, New York, Colm Flynn, EWTN News Nightly.
What a wonderful story. Well, Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil is lit up and wearing a face mask. An image of a surgical mask was projected onto the iconic statue. It is to raise awareness of the importance of taking protective measures in order to slow the spread of the coronavirus. The statue overlooking Rio de Janeiro was also shown with a message that says, "Wearing a mask saves." And just a reminder, EWTN broadcasts Mass throughout the day. Mass airs at 8 a.m., noon, and 7 p.m. Eastern. We are also airing other special programming, including the Pope's Daily Mass, and you can find our schedule at EWTN.com. There you will also find Eucharistic adoration throughout the day. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. We're back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night and God bless.